Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the UX Writers Meetup. I send out a special welcome to our international friends who are now able to join us virtually. I hope that if you're someplace where it's in the morning, you have your cup of coffee. And if you are someplace where it's evening, you have a glass of wine or an adult beverage or just some water for hydration. We have a really exciting event planned for tonight. I see your coffee, great. My name is Catherine Strauss. I'm the Meetup founder, and I also want to introduce the co-organizer of our Meetup, and that's Kirsten Forsberg. She's on the line, and she's going to help moderate the session. We also have some tech support from our sponsor. Our sponsor this morning or this evening is Indeed. And a huge thanks to Jason and Brent from Indeed for helping make this event happen on Zoom. Just want to let you know that the main part of our event is being recorded. We're going to have some breakout rooms, and when you go into those breakout rooms, you'll be assigned a room and you have a little activity to do, and you can chat and talk with other people. That part of the session is not going to be recorded, just the main part, just when you come back and just when Amy's speaking. Also, we have closed captioning available, so if you'd like to see captions, just click the CC button at the bottom toolbar in Zoom. All right, I'm going to paste into the chat a link, and I'll paste it several times. This is a link to our Slack workspace. So if you haven't already joined the Slack workspace, go ahead and join it now and go to this channel, August 2020 Meetup Discussion. So we're going to have a highly interactive session today, and we'll use Slack during the meeting to share some comments and ideas and thoughts and things that come in your head while Amy's presenting. So it might be best, since we're also going to use a Zoom chat as well, it might be best if you just open Slack in a separate monitor or have it open on your phone. So there's a lot of multitasking going on, but I think it's going to make for a very interactive meeting. The good thing about the Slack workspace is it's always going to be there for you to refer back to when you need to remind yourself of what kind of things you learned in the meeting. And also we'll use the Slack workspace for some future meetups. And just want to let you know that by joining that Slack workspace, you agree to our code of conduct, and that code of conduct is posted in the Slack workspace. I have a look at that. All right, I think that's all the housekeeping, and we've got a lot of people joining. I'm going to keep posting this link in. You'll see it a couple of times because the people who join late might not see that. All right, our presenter today is Amy Oliver. She's a content strategist, she's a UX writer, and she's also an artist. She lives in Granada, Spain. Amy, we're so glad to have you with us today, so we'll just let you take it away.
All right, hi everyone, can you hear me? We'll start with that. All right, great. I'm going to share my screen here. All right. And if you can see my screen, let's just do a test, and in the chat space, say something in either the Zoom one or the Slack. Yes. Okay, great. Okay, and I'm going to get set up. All right. Thank you for joining us today. I want to first start by giving a big shout out to Catherine and Kirsten and Indeed for all their amazing work getting the San Francisco UX Writers Meetup online and getting us online here. It's so exciting to be able to connect with you in this format because normally I can't come to the San Francisco meetups unless I'm in the Bay Area. So I'm in Granada, Spain. It's 6 p.m. And if you could just share in one of the chat spaces where you're joining us from today. My hope is that we become interactive and communicate today while everything's going on. And you'll have moments later to be able to talk to each other too. I'm going to get my Slack space set up. Okay. So we're going to go on a choose your own content strategy adventure, exploring your personal content and how you organize yourself. Like I said, there'll be time to network in small groups with other people and brainstorm strategies for your content success. You don't have to put your camera on. But if you do, it's kind of like we're in person. So that's really up to you. So some of you might be familiar with the game book series, Choose Your Own Adventures. If you're a child of the 80s or 90s, you probably were. You read them. In these books, you're the reader, you're the protagonist, and you're offered choices in which you flip either forward or back. And depending on the decisions you make, it branches into different storylines. So you might be surprised with success. You might come back to an earlier point in the story, or maybe disappointment, or maybe death. Simple decisions have consequences you could never have imagined. And I was thinking, what would a Choose Your Own Adventure book look like if it was converted to a modern day Choose Your Own Content Strategy adventure? Would it be like some sassy chronicles of content life on a product team? Or maybe better yet, you could go back in time or head in the future and get your own content house in order. So I think it might look something like this: the content design quest for mastering and leveling up on a specific area of content, journey or design or product or tech, any direction you want to go. Journey out of content chaos to get your personal resources in order, all those pesky work files, bookmarks, pocket links, get them in searchable order. Or maybe the personal content brand, maybe you want to work on your image, your interactions in the world. So if you're ready, we're going to do this together. We're going to go open up the master narrative book and start our content strategy adventure where you're the hero of the story. Okay, so every Choose Your Own Content or Choose Your Own Adventure book begins with a warning, and this one is no different. These pages contain many different adventures you can go on in your content career. From time to time, you'll be asked to make a choice. Your choice may lead to success or disaster. The adventures you take are a result of your choice. You are responsible because you choose. And so our adventure begins. Page 1. You are a content professional working in the 21st century. Information and experiences in tangible and digital formats, known as content, are a valuable asset driving trillion-dollar industries. However, due to its ability to rapidly increase in number and multiply like gremlins, when left unmanaged or in the hands of reckless creators, content also has a hidden dark side to be handled with care. All right, hold on a moment. Before we go any further, what do you mean by content professional and unmanaged and reckless creators? What kind of content professional are you? Are you part of the unmanaged problem? Are you a reckless creator? Well, you're the hero of this story, and the hero's journey is all about self-discovery. So let's take a moment to reflect on who you are in content. Now, content is a vast area, and many of you here work in design or UX or writing strategy. Some of you don't work in content at all, but you use content, you produce content in your own work areas. So when I refer to content, I'm talking about words, images, and multimedia. And the content resources could be anything you use to make content, hopefully usable and meaningful content. You might have work content and personal content. Those might be mixed. Your work might be the things that help you plan, create, deliver content, and the documentation for the projects, the project themselves. Your personal resources might be information about your personal brand, what you put in LinkedIn, your writing, social media, photos, videos, etc. Your finance files, how to grow tomatoes, those links. So it's probable that you have a lot of links and folders and tools helping you manage your content resources. I'm going to ask you a few questions now about yourself and your content, and we'll use the Zoom and the Slack channel wherever you feel most comfortable as our interactive workspace with each other. Okay, are you ready to begin? Type your answer in the chat space. All right. Okay, so the first questions are about content and your professional content life. What content areas excite you right now? Here's a list of some that you might be working in or want to explore. You might be interested in completely different areas, and that's fine too, because it's your adventure. So go ahead and write it in the chat. Write down the areas you're in. I'm gonna see what you guys are writing. Okay, I see something like product design, UX writing and inclusivity. Okay, we're going on to the next question. What stage are you at in your content career? You can interpret that however you want. Are you just starting out? Are you making a transition into other areas? Are you preparing for your legacy? Write it in the chat and feel free to add another stage that feels more like where you're at. There's no right answers because it's your life. Great, I see things like gaining a broader vision, pivoting, going more extended, breadth, track changes, interesting. Mentoring, giving back. Some of you, you know, might be looking for new jobs. That's also new jobs inside of this area. Okay, those last two questions were about you and your content. And the next two questions will be about you and your organization habits. So what's your content organization style? I did some interviews while I was preparing this talk, and there were three organizational personality styles that really stood out. The first is the minimalist. They like just having the essentials. So I put a little backpack. They prioritize internal information, things they've gained through experience. You could drop them in an environment with no resources and they would figure out how to do things with a journalistic style of who, what, when, where, why, how, to get to the heart of a problem. They don't like clutter. They spend a lot of time, or sorry, they don't like spending a lot of time documenting, and they don't have extensive saved files from past jobs. They can be at a loss in new projects outside their experience of expertise, and they like to have resource banks from trusted others in these cases. Next is the pack rat. They believe everything could be important, if not now, then one day in the future. They often have extensive knowledge base as they're constantly searching and collecting. Their memory is the strongest for the most recent things, which they can recall, and then the other things fade off into the past, and they know they've got it saved if only they knew where. They struggle to find things unless a strong organization system is in place, and they suffer from constant accumulation and piles of everything. Everything from the past might be jumbled inside one big folder. There might be many folders inside of it as well. And then we have the architect. They have excellent classification, organization, and recall of content. They can find content quickly and are able to stay on top of it. Where the architect struggles is with spending excessive amounts of time thinking about better ways to manage their content, as they're driven to stay on top of it at a micro level. And this is the case even when they have the resources that would take 12 years to read. So what's your content organization style? I see some of you have already been writing in the chat. Go ahead and write yours. Pack rats, complete and total chaos is an option. Minimalist, with digital, pack rat with paper. Oh, all three, yes. We can all be all three as well. Right, so often there's one of these that kind of pulls you more than another, so we'll use that for our categorization today. Okay, and the last question. Similar to businesses, we're all at a different stage in how we manage our content. So here I'm sharing, I think it's pronounced Rahel Bailey's content strategy maturity model. She names 5 stages: reactive, tactical, integrated, managed, and strategic, where businesses are with their content. And I think it can apply really well to our personal stages with organization. Now, in the slide deck that I've sent, or I think we've sent to you, there's another slide that goes into this in a bit more detail, but we'll just leave it for now that you choose one of these that feels like where you're at. So go ahead and write in the chat. What content strategy maturity are you at? While people are filling things out, I'll just show the next slide that has that, oops, in more detail. You can read this later though, because you have the deck. Tactical, reactive, oh, managed. You're my dream. Reactive. It's curious because our job is to install this in companies to move up on the ladder. And we ourselves struggle on our own personal content resources. Okay, so now we can continue. You know what kind of content interests you, you know about your growth stage and your content organization style and your maturity. So let's go to the next page. Page 2. As a content professional, nay, content warrior, you are faced with many content challenges, such as learning more about the industry, wanting to better organize your personal content resources, and improving your personal brand, including dedicating time to relationships with peers like today in the content community. You've decided to work on one of your content pain points. Which will you choose? Okay, so your content pain points are connected to who you are and what direction you want to go in. And that kind of makes them both a business goal and a job to be done. So we just reflected on who you are. And the next question is, what's your top content pain point? What would you like to change starting today? You don't need to write this in the chat because we're going to be breaking into our group soon. But some problems that came up in the interviews with others that you might be facing include wanting to advance in a design area. For example, unable to create repeating content quickly, needing to find things from scratch for every new project, lacking information about new areas, transitioning. Maybe it's related to your organization. You have messy past folders from previous companies or projects in the company you're in. Each time you want to access something because you've got a great system that you already thought out, it takes too much time. Maybe you have duplicate links across work browsers, home browsers, tools. Maybe you have no backups, no password system. Passwords are a big thing. Perhaps your problems are around your brand, a new job search. You know, it's really sad, but in this time, a lot of people have lost their jobs due to COVID and are on the job search. But the great news is a great moment to connect with what's essential and important to yourself, like who you are professionally and what communities are important to you. And this needs time. You need to get your CV in order, your portfolio. You might be interested in writing articles for LinkedIn, Medium with a strategy behind them, not just random, I'm gonna write this today. Meeting new people, mentoring others. So think about what your top pain point is, and we're gonna break into our groups now, and we're gonna discuss this. So how this will work is Kirsten's going to send, I think Kirsten, maybe it's indeed with Jason, it's gonna send everyone off into private rooms of around 5 people, more or less. You'll see a message on your screen that looks like this. And you're just going to click on that join breakout room and you'll be in there for about 10 minutes when you'll be magically transported back to the group. With your group, you're going to introduce yourself and share who you are in content. So your area, stage, style, maturity, and what your top content pain point is. So we've sent you the document, the RA of this presentation. So if you need to refer to anything, you can go back. And if there's anyone who doesn't feel comfortable, it's not a problem at all. You can be that fly on the wall inside of group and just listen. And if you feel comfortable, turn your camera on, get to know some people, networking. So we're ready for the breakout session. I'll see you all in 10 minutes. Great, is everyone back?
Mm-hmm. If we'd all
Okay.
figure out we're doing some wrong, this would be a bunch of bad boys and girls.
I think that's a sign of things were going really well. You must have been in your conversations and things were going well with the people you're meeting. All right, I hope you met some friendly people and you were able to complete your task and maybe talk about some things related to your content problems. I can see all your faces in the Zoom and I've been reading your comments here, and What I see are very capable professionals. You don't need me to tell you how to solve your content problems because you already know how. This is what you do for a living. But having said that, there's this Spanish refrain that says, oops, let's see, en casa del herrero, cuchara de palo. And what this roughly means is, even though a person specializes in something, it doesn't necessarily mean they apply it to their life. So many of the people I talked with, they felt guilty about not having their personal content or their work content in order, perfectly in order. And as content people, we're often pushing for this in the companies we work with. We want them to be moving up the ladder. And this was across the board when I talked to people who were more minimalist, pack rats, and architects. But at the same time, digital content is exponential, both in what we produce and the fact that you can duplicate everything. And I came across this interesting quote in a TED article on why we owe it to ourselves to spend quiet time alone each day by Alan Lightman. And he talks about how we're losing time for reflection and contemplation in the artificial urgency of the wired world. And we work in this. So with that in mind, I thought we could just take a moment to step outside the matrix and just breathe. All right, let's continue. So we're going to go meta on content strategy. We're going to think about the content strategy of the content strategist, and that's you. And we're going to think about what could increase your understanding or productivity or professional reach, and which of your repeating activities that you do need automating or scaling strategies. And our goal isn't to focus on everything. It's to focus on what will give you a future time shortcut or put you where you want to be. What information, strategies, or tools do you need to get there? So many of you have this great book, The Content Strategy Toolkit by Megan Casey. And apart from explaining how to do content strategy, she focuses on websites mostly. One of the great features of this book are the templates and worksheets that excel in the back of the book. So the information is so relevant. However, many of the tools and the templates have become outdated. And I got to thinking, what if there was a toolkit that went with you throughout your whole content career and included the new areas you're working in while keeping the best resources from your past, a toolkit unique to your content needs? And what if the only one who could create this kit adapted exactly to you was you? So I hope today to inspire you with some ideas to put in your own personalized content strategy kit. And your kit might be a list. Your kit might be methodology you have in your head. Your kit might be any sort of thing. And I'm going to show you some ideas today. So we're going to begin with the content basics. And I took these from usability.gov and Brain Traffic. So our content strategy game plan is to create a positive user experience for the user, that's you, and make sure you have content that is useful and usable, well-structured, and easy to find. And this will involve planning, creation, delivery, and governance on your part. You know this. So step one, understand your user and your business goals. In this case, the user is you, and more or less the business is you as well. So we started with the user, you're the user, and you've already worked on defining some of your needs and you've talked about it with some other people. And the second part then is your business goal. And it's also technically your job to be done because you're the creator and you're the user. So, you know, these are three different areas here, these books have different things that are repeating content moments in your life. And that's what's interesting for us to work with, is things that repeat. If they don't repeat, you probably don't need a system for it. So we have the area again, a specific design area, organizing your content, and working with your brand, your job search, your community. Okay, so step two. The next step is to find or make content that's useful and usable for you. And remember, you only need what's useful right now on this one project you're working on. So there's so many great curated content resources that already exist. I'm going to share a few here. You'll have the presentation later with these resources. There's so many more I don't even know about. There's so many that you're about to create, and I'd love to see them in the future. The first one, the UX Writing Library. Great list of content books, people to follow, events, resource guides. Scott Kuby, he posted something recently in his blog that was useful articles about UX content design, really great classics as well as new stuff. Many of you are in this group, the Content and UX Resource Library. I think there's like 245 resources in there, from accessibility, from inclusion, from salaries. You just find so many things all organized in this Airtable that makes it easy for you to do a sort. I went to the Content Strategy LA meetup recently, and they had a talk on making conscious content. And this is really relevant always, and especially now it's more on people's radar. This conscious style guide has lots of articles that talk about different areas. Wonderful. The other one, Self-Defined, has a lot of ways that people define themselves, and what are, I mean, there's so many things in there that I'm not even aware of. I'm in Spain. I try to keep up to date with what's going on, but the US definitely is pushing boundaries in a great way. We do a lot of research with content. So this guide to user research, they've got also about 250 articles in here. Each of those squares represents an area that you could be focusing in on. And you can make your own curated resources. So this is an example of something I've made. I'm a big fan of Trello. So I use Trello to create a documentation board about product design, because I found that even though I had these things saved, even though I felt like I knew them, as I was working on things like my portfolio, there were so many things I needed to go back to, and I would have a vision in my mind of that photo, that's the photo I need to see, that image. And then I would spend a lot of time looking for it. So I created this board. If I scrolled to the right, you'd see more design kind of theories. And as I was working with clients, what I realized was sometimes it doesn't even matter the product design. They don't have their business, their mission, their values, their value add. And so I put in a column in there on the left side of just, you know, pre-business items. So source templates for repeating tasks. Depending on your context, you might work as a freelancer or at an agency or in a larger team or as part of a one-person content band. Your work environments may or may not have pre-established templates. You may not want a template. You might want a list. You might, whatever works for you, you might want a blank presentation that just has some headers because you find that that's what you're using all the time. Well, you know, make your life easier, get that ready. Here's another one that I created. This on the left side, I was making a lot of repeating projects, and I needed to be able to find them when I finished. So I found that when I'd finished a project, I needed to work on maintenance. It was kind of in old files, old things. And I just needed a fast way that I could go in and say, you know, what are the things that need maintenance? Where's the finished document whenever I need to send that? On the right-hand side is part of the process I used for making this, in this particular, is a chatbot. And I was inspired by Hilary Black's information on how to create a chatbot, which I put the link in there. And she went through these great steps. And I thought, oh, well, why don't I put all of her steps in and then start connecting those to the documents I'm working on? And after I did that, I realized every single project I worked on, even preparing for this talk, kind of had the same phases. And so it was very easy for me to just use that as a repeating internal doc for myself. Or I know we get asked a lot to do side projects for people in our community. Wouldn't it be great just to have that so we don't have to keep on remembering things that we're not actually working on in work, but we used to do. So many great tools for organization. I talked to, these are some that I use and people that I talked with in preparing for this talk. Find the training you need. General Assembly right now has a lot of free courses, and they have, in those three particular areas I talked about, the design, organization, and networking in your content brand, or your brand, not your content brand, but they have a lot of courses that you can do. Right now, it's like an explosion of learning online across the world. And then reach out to your network. They have resources and information for you. And these are some of the people who helped me prepare for this talk. And many of them I met in this San Francisco UX Writers Meetup during the group work activity moments. Okay, so next step. Step 3, give your content system structure. Create predictable and classifiable structures that you will use across all your storage areas, your labels, documents, files, set links. Define a name system and use it consistently. So normally when you're working with information architecture, they tell you don't design based on your own preferences because you're not the user. But in this case, you are the user. So your intuitive choices are the best choices. Define an organization system. Think about how you save your documents and your links. What are the parent folders? Keep them to a minimum. Make certain everything is saved in only one location. Where are you going to save the Slack for this UX Writers Meetup? Because, you know, the next time you want to contribute, where will that be located? And also the elephant in the room, define a regular maintenance schedule. Architects are like, you got this. So you know content needs maintenance and your resources are no exception. So maintenance is usually not urgent, but always important. And you need cleanups, eliminations, backups. The best strategy is to set it like a task, a weekly, monthly, annual, whatever system you choose that works for you, and do it across all your locations. Backups are also part of your structure. So remember, being organized is one of those things that separates an amateur from a professional, and you are a professional. Okay, so finally, make your content easy for you to find. Create shortcuts, the low-hanging fruit. This is my Google site, places that I go to often. I have the same things bookmarked in my links area. What about you? Do you have Google Drive shortcuts that you use frequently? What about a Trello that leads to frequent paths in Confluence? Your email? There's so many ways you can organize. And I know all of this takes time, but it buys you future time. So it's like you're giving yourself the gift of time in the future. And I mentioned maintenance before, but I'm gonna mention it again because it's part of finding things. Regular cleanups, essential. You know, you might need a fumigation of your content, and also bringing home stray content. These are the two things that will show you the most dividends. Minimalist, you might want to add thought leaders to your resources. Pack rats, you might start with a content inventory and a big digital trash bag. And architects, you might want to do some consolidating. I like this Marie Kondo take on maintenance because it makes it feel easy. There's so many systems, so find one that works for you and according to your organizational style and your maturity, your organizational maturity. Okay, so be realistic. Let go of the guilt. The important thing is that you can only read so much, clean so much, do so much. Learn to throw away folders, links, even books. Everything doesn't need to be kept or to be clean. So learn from the architects. Make structure a habit. Learn from the minimalists. You need less. And learn from the pack rats. Some mess is okay. All right, you've done a great job listening and absorbing. Breathe in and imagine yourself going one small step forward. So let's remember something about adventures, and in particular about choose your own adventures. They have a hidden structure inside. Some paths are better than others. Sometimes you choose the wrong path, but you get lucky. And sometimes you do everything right, but you get unlucky. So what we're doing here is we're just trying to make choices with the intent of avoiding the darkest timeline. The darkest timeline, our goal is to avoid it, to find the brightest. The darkest timeline is the worst possible scenario that can happen. You unexpectedly leave a company and you lose your resources and documentation. I talked to people whose companies suddenly laid them off. They had zero time to move screenshots, projects from work storage to personal storage. Other people, computer might get stolen, things get deleted, drives get corrupted. I know we keep a lot of things in the cloud, but things can get erased. You lose passwords, access to information. Maybe you had a great system, but again, you move from a company and suddenly all of those tools have your old work email and you now can't access it and you can't change your password. So what are you doing to make certain you have access to that information? Media channels, you know, we've got a lot of things in the internet about ourselves with old data about yourself, embarrassing old data about your content, how you used to think. Do cleanup there. Maybe you take too long on a project and you lose the respect of colleagues or future opportunities. So I always thought when you work on a new project or you start with a new company, you kind of have this grace period of 2 weeks. In this moment, everybody's so friendly and they're so eager to give you all the information you need. And I always thought, wouldn't it be great if I already had my things ready to ask them, my checklist, my templates, so I could be as fast and agile as possible at that time? You know, going back to your portfolio, if you're looking for new work, you need a portfolio. No portfolio and a poor portfolio can be what causes you to not get a job you want. And then there's the gray timeline. All that time that you lose looking for things, recreating things that you already know how to do. So it's my hope that your content strategy adventure helps you find the brightest timeline. All right, so what content strategy adventure will you choose? And what will you need in your toolkit for success? Whatever kind of toolkit that is, whatever success looks like for you. We're gonna break again into our same groups, and you'll have about 10 minutes or so to work together as a team. You're gonna choose one adventure, and the adventures will be of those 3 books that we were looking at, either design, a new content design area, your organization, or working on your personal brand. Choose something that your group wants to work on and decide and ideate what would you need in your content strategy kit. And also in your groups, choose someone in your group to be the group speaker. So after your work session, we'll have a round of sharing when you come back. So we're all ready for being sent back to your rooms in the good way. Oh, welcome back. How's everyone feeling?
Good.
Okay, all right.
Very good.
Great, that's good to hear. I've got to kind of browse through your photos so I can see how you guys look. Oh, you're looking good. All right.
This is very helpful. Thank you.
Oh, great, Jennifer. So it's the moment to share your adventure. Is there any group that would like to talk about your experience? Which of the 3 paths did you choose? What did you ideate?
I can start.
Great. Let me stop share so we can see you.
So our group chose the journey out of content chaos as our adventure. And in our toolkit, we kind of figured out 5 things that we think we would need to make this happen. First is just basic education about what content strategy or UX writing is for anyone that would work for us or work with us. And part of that could be defining clear roles and areas, which is kind of what we do and what we don't do. And we talked a little bit about style guides and their effectiveness, and we thought rather than that, maybe just some cheat sheets about the specific surface areas and audiences, just to make it really easy for non-writers to understand what we do. Part of it is also finding writer allies across the company. So in different disciplines like marketing and design, these are folks that get it and can help us kind of spread the word. And then also establishing some rituals like pair writing or critiques to also help kind of socialize our work.
That's super interesting. The cheat sheets, that idea of getting people to understand what you do and your rituals. Love it, love it. How about another group? What did you work on? Anyone work on the first adventure or the 3rd adventure?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Our group, I think, really kind of netted out at talking about defining the personal brand aspect or adventure. Wouldn't you say so, guys? That's kind of what I took away. But anyway, yeah, so here are some of the things that we came up with would be, of course, the audits of our online profiles, rein that in and make it consistent across, across the board. And then the other cool thing was, like showing people portfolios or just whatever, and then getting feedback on that. And, kind of make that thing a bucket, really. And, holding on to that information and being able to refer back to it and maybe kind of like prioritize according to what feedback we think is the most valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Those were a couple of the things.
That's great. The audit of the profiles, I mean, we've done this for companies, so we know how many things lurk out there that they don't know that exist about them. And then when you do it for yourself, you're always surprised as well, especially old ways or old groups that you don't even, classify that anymore. I just went into a Zoom group the other day and I had some old photo in the Zoom. I thought, oh, I didn't even think about that. How many different channels do I have where when I pop in, or the Slack groups, that you need to actually clean out what it says your job is in your networking? There's so many online things. And you also mentioned the portfolio and the feedback. Super interesting. I know this group here has done some in the past that are on getting your portfolio in order. I also think too a lot about how all of us are doing the same thing again and again for ourselves individually. But what you're doing, Jennifer, somebody else has already done, and we've got this community where we can share that. It's wonderful, wonderful ideas in your group. Someone else want to share? Oops.
I was in breakout room 6 with Nahid and Michael, and we had a fantastic time. And I think one of the first things that we were expressing, we're doing content chaos.
Yeah, okay.
Amy, you had said this idea of we could now have the opportunity to be both the expert and the user, which we thought was exciting. And we were able to add a couple of things to our toolkit. We started talking about naming conventions, kind of going off of what you were saying, and how key that is, not only within our own organizational system, but also being able to do naming conventions as you hand it off to collaborators, other team members. And it seems like such a simple process to put in your toolkit, but like you were saying, it saves so much time in the future and headache. And then the second thing that we spent a lot of time talking about was kind of the platform that could be an all-in-one workspace. And both Michael and Nahid had talked about a platform called Notion, which is actually the first time that I'd heard about it. And it really seems to kind of fit the task of being able to organize pretty much anything within the process, any part of the process, including, we talked about next steps, being able to have that to-do list there, and taking screenshots of key parts of your deliverables. So I thought that was, well, we all thought that was a great platform to explore further.
That's great stuff. Shimyan, is that how you pronounce it?
Shimyan, yes.
Shimyan, yeah. Very interesting about the naming. Naming is so simple. It's so simple, and yet, why is it so complex? All the versions, the dates. I put some links in there, and I actually think there's a lot of better resources out there in the information architecture community that I just don't know about. So if anyone has some, you could feel free to pass those on in the, if, for example, the Slack channel, where we'll keep more of a history. Everything that we're kind of immature on in our own personal content world, we probably in our business world don't have those abilities. The opposite is not true. The things that we're good at in the business world don't always apply to what we do. But yeah, and once you know how to name things, then you give that to different organizations and projects you work with. You bring that. I know I talk to, I don't have great systems for that, but I talk to people who do have great systems. So again, that's one of those ones where articles, networks can really help you. And then very interesting about the Notion. I also didn't know about Notion. And in one of the interviews, I think I put it in the list of tools because somebody I talked to had also recommended that as a platform that they liked. Great, thank you for sharing with your group. do we have anyone who worked on the first one, wanting to learn about other design areas or content design?
Yeah, I did actually.
Okay, Ashley.
My group very generously jumped on my bandwagon. I started freelancing in the last month, and it has, although it's been kind of like going on all of the adventures at once, I've kind of been doing what you were talking about, which is designing resources for myself based on the services that I want to provide. And granted, your examples are far more in depth than I've been able to get yet. But, you know, being on that process of just, you know, figuring out like, okay, what kinds of content am I going to be doing regularly? And what are the steps and best practices in those things? And what resources do I already have that talk about this that I can reference anytime that I want to? And bringing all of those things together in one place so that I know like what questions I need to ask my client and what resources and tools I need and how to structure my project. So that's been a really valuable thing for me that I'm still in the process of doing and probably will be for a long time. But it's been so wonderful. And I really liked your examples. So thank you for sharing those.
That's great. I got to give the example credit back to the people I talked to. But yes, so what you're saying there, gathering all the reasons, and also it's that thing, we don't know what we don't know. We don't, you know, even just creating things, we don't know. Is this an argument that's already been debated in the community and I just didn't know because I've never read that? So yeah, we give ourselves permission to not afraid to fail, right? You go out, you learn a bit. And also when, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I think when you have, you know, a position that has you working with one brand or a couple of brands, if you're at an agency, like your expertise and your preparedness is about the brand and you really internalize that. Whereas when you're freelancing, it's actually just kind of the types of content that you do that you need to really internalize those and be ready all the time for anything because you never know what somebody's gonna need. So it's been a really interesting shift into kind of designing content templates and things like that to have them at the ready to be better prepared for whatever comes.
That's right. Think about all those things you have to know that you just have to be ready with it, or have some resources you can go to that are your quick finds. That's what the minimalists teach us, right?
Yeah. You need like a Mary Poppins bag. Yeah.
Yes. I feel that's very specific to content, but then you start learning about, you know, developers' problems and designers' problems, and they all feel the same way. So there's just so much information in the world, interesting, and it all crosses and connects together. So that's great. Great. I loved all of the talking that you guys did in your groups. I didn't hear it, but just you guys sharing, it allowed me to come into your private groups, and I thank you for that. I see in the chat too that people are writing down some things that are useful for them and recommendations. That's so wonderful. Every single person here is a source of lots and lots of information, and that's what the communities are for, right? So we have people we can reach out to and share. I'm gonna try to go back to the screen sharing, and we'll start wrapping up our talk. All right, can you see my screen? One more second. So easy to lose everything. All right. All right, so thank you everyone for coming, for playing. It was fun. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn. And if you do, please add a little note saying that you met me here, because it helps me with my LinkedIn organizing for later on to know where these contacts are from. And I'd love to see any of the toolkits you create. And again, like I said, I just have this wonderful idea of a huge toolkit, like some of the resources I shared with you, that we could just tap into at any moment that help us. And I want to say thank you to Indeed for the tech support during the call. It was amazing. We didn't have any problems, which is amazing. And also to Catherine and Kirsten for organizing everything. Such a great team. Join us next month. We're gonna have Mario Ferrer, who's gonna be speaking from Madrid. In October, Carolyn Pieracci from Zurich, Switzerland. And in November, back to San Francisco. We'll be looking forward to hearing from Laura Muirichia, UX writer at Square. And please continue to use the Slack workspace to connect with other members in the meetup. Until next time.
Thank you.